So, I don't know if you noticed, but X-Men 97 is real good, and people really, really like it. And I've seen this question asked several different ways. Like, a lot of people are bringing this up. Why is X-Men 97 so much better than a lot of what we've been getting in Marvel? Like, what's the deal? Like, what's up with that, right? You've got people saying it's better than a lot of Phase 4 and Phase 5. I think that's totally fair. Like, it does kind of clear a lot of what we've gotten in the past couple of years. But you've got people literally saying it's better than Endgame. You've got people saying this is better than a lot of what has come before in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, what the hell is happening? Is that real? I mean, I don't know, but I'll tell you this. I've thought about it, and I think I've come up with 5 different reasons why this show is so much better than we expected it to be, so much better than a lot of other content that's out there, and we're going to go over that right now. So the first reason, and let me know if you're feeling these reasons or not in the chat, the first reason comes down to the show avoids a major pitfall of Marvel's current way of producing projects. Mainly, this whole concept of fix it in post. Marvel Studios kind of has a bad habit that's based on success. So, I don't know if you know this, they didn't even have a finished script for Iron Man 1 when they started filming. I think they were even going to have, like, the Mandarin be in Iron Man 1 at one point, and then they kind of, like, change it. So, the studio's philosophy since inception has kind of been, we'll fix it in post. We'll scramble. We'll figure it out. And for a while that worked. I would argue, you know, they got lucky in some ways. They also had people that worked really well within that system, right? So think about Robert Downey Jr. We just saw in this article that he is a very big, you know, going off script, you know, feeling it in the moment, changing things up, being true to the character, but making it feel fresh. I think the Russos are like that too. You know, I watched a number of different interviews with the Russo. They have a really great one with Zack Snyder where they're breaking down their process. And the Russos are very much like that as well. You know, they like to switch things around, play with stuff. If they find something, they double down on it. So they had people that worked well within that system. Now, going into Phase 4 and 5, it's just obvious that that shit is not working. Right? And you look at all the different things that are going on, all the lackluster, unfulfilled story beats, some of the weird editing, unfinished CGI, go through all the lists. You could take a lot of what's going on with Marvel Studios right now and lay it at the feet of this strategy of we'll fix it in post, right? Well, you can't do that in X-Men 97. And this is something that's just because of the way animation works, it's not so easy to get your actors back and totally change a scene. You can't let an actor just ad-lib and go off script because then you have to redo the animation, right? So things have to be more meticulously thought out and put together for the production. I think that's a big reason as to why this is much better than a lot of stuff that's going on with Marvel right now. Who's to say exactly? Like, does that system need to be thrown out completely? Probably not. Is it volume? Is it delays? Is it trying to work with Sony and then also the pandemic and all this? It's probably a lot of that. But I think we can all just see the evidence of it just not working, right? So it's not working, and X-Men 97 misses that. It's able to avoid that pitfall completely. Now, the reason number 2 is it's not weighed down with continuity. This is yet again another thing that used to be benefit to Marvel Studios and has now become a burden because everything is connected. And there's a way it's supposed to fit together. When things go wrong and you go back to that first one and you change it in post, usually that means you've got to just pull stuff out of other projects. And I think Phase 4 specifically, it had a lot of this, where like originally Doctor Strange is supposed to be in WandaVision. All of those commercials, which by the way end up basically amounting to nothing in the show, they originally had deep meaning connected to Doctor Strange wanting to communicate to Wanda to break her out of something that was going on. That just gets completely abandoned because they have to change the scheduling of other movies. And they're like, well, we just, that's what was happening. They were like, okay, well, we just got to remove this. And I think you see a serious lack of connective tissue, ironically, because They didn't want things to clash in their continuity. X-Men 97 doesn't have that problem at all. X-Men 97 is allowed to fly all on its own. It is canon to the show that came before. It is adapting things from the comics, but it is already changing things. And I think it's going to change more things. And it doesn't have to worry about it. If the show wants to do something dope, it can do something dope. It doesn't have to think about how that's going to affect the next Disney Plus streaming show or the next movie or the next this, that, second, and the third. No, none of that is of their concern. They are just here to wow the audience, blow our hair back, and excite us with awesome and dope shit. It's surprising. It's shocking. It's fresh. It's fun. And so it avoids another pitfall of the Marvel Studios system. Reason number 3. These are characters that a lot of people know. We have the archetype for these characters already in mind because of the show that came before, because of other X-Men media. Now, again, maybe this is more so for older fans, also fans that have explored the X-Men in any meaningful way. We kind of get it, right? We kind of get Charles Xavier. Even if you're a big normie, you kind of get it. You like Magneto, you kind of get it. You get Cyclops, you get Wolverine, you get Jean Grey. And I think one of the reasons you get them is because they're pretty human, despite being actually mutants and having these extravagant powers. They have very human motivations. They have very human flaws. And the show's able to take what is established if these characters and put them through the ringer. The show is dumping trauma and conflict and weariness, self-doubt, all of these things. It's just dumping all this shit onto these characters. And I think it partially works as well as it does because there's such a strong attachment to who these characters are and the archetypes that have already been established for them. Like if we were talking about this the other week, where if we went into just a regular mall, right, and we were asking people to look at pictures of comic book characters and ask them what they knew about them. I think when it came to a character like Wolverine, even the most normie of person, I mean, anybody that has any kind of awareness of comic books is going to be like, that's Wolverine. He is a grumpy, angry, hack and slash type dude. Like, that's who he is. Like, you have that basic archetype of Wolverine figured out. Hugh Jackman has a lot to do with that, right? Same with Cyclops, Jean, Magneto, all the way down. I think their traits are pretty well established. And I think that the show gets to play with characters that are really there, that a lot of people already recognize. And I think that's a big deal. The fourth reason I think this show is so much better and people are loving it so much is because it's pulling from absolutely incredible source material. There's a reason the X-Men are what they are to comic book fans, and it's because some of the best writers that have ever done any work in comics, some of the best artists that have ever done any work in comics have done that work in the X-Men. The show is standing on the shoulders of giants. And it's not just the people that made the other version of the show, although I would argue that is true as well. And the creators of the original show are giants in the game. But we're also standing on the shoulders of Chris Claremont and Grant Morrison. They have a catalog where some of the most brilliant minds that have ever worked in this industry have poured themselves into these stories with these characters because they matter. They matter to the people then. They matter to people now. So it's interesting to see how they are adapting the comics. I think a lot of people right now are getting frustrated with Marvel because Marvel seems to be trying to do their own thing and go away from the comics. That's kind of always been the way it is, though. Like even Civil War, Age of Ultron, these are not what they were in the comics, but Marvel used to figure out how to adapt it in their own way and still kind of have the feeling of what was going on. Like I would argue Age of Ultron, I would definitely say Civil War has a lot of the same feeling of, you know, the Mark Miller story. I believe it was Mark Miller, but it certainly doesn't have the same beat. It doesn't have the same characters, right? But it has the same feeling. And I think we've kind of gotten away from that. I mean, Phase 4 was somewhat of an experiment, trying a lot of different things and trying them in ways that felt fresh. And I think a lot of that shit just fell flat. Like, frankly, I think a lot of fans just want the goodies from comics. And there's also like a reason, like here's the thing that's weird, right? Like there, again, I find it so strange that the X-Men are as popular as they are. That's because of the stories that have happened in comics, right? why would you not utilize that? Like, it feels counterintuitive to have all of this stuff, know what it is, buy the rights back for what did Disney do? $73 billion to get all the Fox rights back? And not use it? Not adapt it? I mean, that's what Star Wars, that's the Star Wars problem, right? Remember Kathleen Kennedy's like, we have no source material. There's no comics. There's no novels and all this stuff. And a lot of us are like, bro, what the are you talking about? Like, you have incredible stories in the EU. Why wouldn't you adapt it? And I think this show stands on the shoulders of giants. Like, that's another big reason as to why it's killing it. And then the last reason, and I think this is a really important one. And I'm actually gonna pull something up here on Twitter because I think it's a really big deal, guys. And that is that the people that are making this show, it's personal to them. It's personal. Okay. And I wanna pull up a little thing here because we talked about this before, actually, but it bears repeating, and I'm excited to share this with you again. Let me get this pulled up here. This is somebody commenting on an old story here where Bo DeMeo, okay, that his writer's room only recruited writers who were fans of the original. Let's get the full quote. Question: can you discuss how the production team came about? Like, how were they recruited for X-Men 97? Answer: for sure. In fall of 2020, Marvel's head of streaming asked me to develop a take to revive the show. From there, I pitched it out, was hired. My LP was the first hire, and he brought along all the amazing talent that followed. My general rule was you had to be a fan. No question. I've been on a show, namely Witcher, where some of the writers were not or actively disliked the books and games. I think he meant were not fans or actively disliked, even actively mocking the source material. Reminds me of Gutierrez and the Luke Skywalker fan tears. You remember that? Not a good look. I've been on a show, namely The Witcher. Yeah. It's a recipe for disaster and a bad move. Fandom as a litmus test checks egos and makes all the long nights worth it. You have to respect the work before you're allowed to add to its legacy. Man, I'm getting sick of these people that aren't actually fans making this shit. And man, I'm getting sick of the studios trying to act like it's not a big deal, like it doesn't matter. At what point are we going to wake the fuck up and understand that it matters? Look at what's happening with Fallout right now. And I know there's some buttholes hating on Fallout. Bro, Fallout's amazing. It's amazing. And you got Todd Howard over there's working on it. Look at what happened with Last of Us. I'm not a Last of Us fan. I didn't play the games, but the show's blowing up. It's crushing it because you've got Neil Druckmann working on the show. What happened with Super Mario Brothers? Miyamoto involved. What happened with the live-action One Piece? Oda involved. Holy shit. What's it going to take? Look at the Halo show. I don't know who's making that Halo show, but they're not a fan. Period. They're not a fan. So I'm sick of this, like, oh, let's tiptoe around the issue, or, oh, you don't really need to be a fan. No, that you do. That you do. And I'm really hoping, man, that Marvel gets it. I mean, the evidence is there. The proof is in the pudding. This shit is blowing up. You've got people going nuts for it. You want to know how you know that this show's crushing it? You've got haters trying to make a distinction between Marvel Animation and Marvel Studios because it can't be together. Otherwise, Marvel Studios did something right. You've got haters trying to make it though this show was not made by Marvel Studios because they can't comprehend it. It breaks their narrative because it's everything they've been saying they wanted from Marvel for years. So the only way you can fuck with it is if you say it wasn't actually Kevin Feige. And by the way, I have nothing against those people. Get your bread. But if you want facts, that's what it is. To me, I would take that as a sign. I would be very excited. I would be like, oh, God damn, we got something that might just be hater-proof. And then figure out why. And also, I just told you why. Shut your mouth and make more of this shit.